FM News Talk 97.1.
On demand audio.
I was most pleased to receive a couple of weeks ago a copy of Ameritopia by Mark Levin, whose show is on this station, that my home station, FM News Talk 97.1. And it's a fantastic book. And all too often there's, a number of political figures that, just pump these books out like factories. And they just seem to be very cosmetic. They just, some anecdotes and, here between the front cover and back cover, and that's it. But not Ameritopia. I'm already into the second chapter. I've been wanting to read more into it. In fact, that's what I'm planning to do tonight. I'll probably finish it tonight. It's a fantastic book. And Ameritopia, The Unmaking of America, is all about the underpinnings of the liberal ideology, which he accurately describes as being utopian, and goes in through all of the ironies of what liberals believe. And Mark Levin is joining me on the phone right now. Good afternoon. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, I've talked to you once before a couple of years ago. I know you talked to a lot of people, so you probably...
No. It's been a long time. Pleasure to meet you again.
Nice to meet you again. This book, Ameritopia, The Unmaking of America, I have to ask you, well, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong, but utopia is Latin for nothing or non-existent, which really just underscores the irony of liberal ideology that you discuss in your book.
Yeah, it's everything and it's nothing, isn't it? And so if you were to ask, for instance, Obama today or any of his supporters, can you please provide us with an exact roadmap, a design, something, a shape, a form of where you want to take us? They can't. And yet they always want to take us there. And that's part of the problem. It's a fantasy. This whole notion of human equality, what the founders meant and what the philosophers they relied on meant, Dana, was we all have a right to life and liberty, and we all have a right to be unmolested by others and unmolested by government, and to pursue our interests, and to have a common just law where we're all treated alike under the law. But it has nothing to do with uniformity and conformity and equal outcomes and this notion of radical egalitarianism, which is what the utopians push with their massive, top-down, big government ideas.
Right. Well, I have to ask you the most obvious question, because you get into this in your book, and I don't want to give the whole book away because obviously people need to go read it. But is there is hope for America, but what does it take aside from just getting involved during the election cycle? Because this is something that's not going to you discuss the statism, you write the centralization and consolidation of power in a political class. It's insulating its agenda in entrenched experts and administrators. What is it going to take to push back what has been over a century of marching America off the cliff?
It's going to take a start, because this is a really formidable problem, isn't it? And it's going to take more than one election of a moderate or center-right Republican. It's going to take a people who've had enough and rise up. And what that takes is a lot more information and education, and which is some of the reasons that I write books like this. In other words, I feel that more people who are informed, not just about the founding, but the philosophy that undergirds the founding, and more people who are informed about the kind of philosophy that the people we oppose support, which is thousands of years old and absolutely destitute. I think if people inform themselves of this and talk to their family members and coworkers and friends, there's a beginning of possible reformation, reestablishment of the Constitution. But, Benjamin Franklin, I paraphrase, at the end of the Constitutional Convention, he said, if the people want despotism, they're going to get despotism, and they're going to deserve it. So it's not going to be one election or even two. There's going to have to be a resolute, ongoing process. Elections, once people get into office, they have to do things. People who get appointed to positions in the bureaucracy, we have a massive fourth branch of government, the administrative state, that operates on its own, regardless of elections, issues thousands of laws every year. That has to stop. Otherwise, we're never going to get this thing under control.
You write, you discuss this in your book about how utopians, which, the underpinning of liberal ideology, they work to achieve the ideal society even if all other attempts prior have failed. Why is it that they believe so strongly that this failed concept, which has been enacted over and over again, failed every single time? Why do they think that they're any different, that they're somehow special, that it will succeed with them?
Because they believe it hasn't been tried the right way. They believe it hasn't been tried all the way. They believe the people who've come before have been inadequate, and they've tried it in piecemeal ways. And so the fact that nationalized health care, centralized health care fails everywhere it's tried, Obama figures, well, it hasn't been tried under me yet, has it? There is a conceit here that others have talked about at great length and written about with these masterminds, as I call them, and others have called them. They're not particularly intelligent. They're not particularly well-informed. It doesn't matter. What they are preachers for a top-down authoritarian ideology. Look, the basic divide between us and the people who oppose us is we see value in the individual. We believe in individual sovereignty. We want to know how people think, how you gain knowledge and reason, and what you rely on, and experience is so crucial to everything we look at. For the other side, none of that matters. The world started today. They have their models in their mind, and as they say they have their models in their mind. Their models are for centralized control, but they're not exactly sure where they're taking us. They just know they're taking us somewhere. And by the way, that is a big point, and you hear it all the time with Obama and others of his ilk, and that is they're always talking about these ambitious, massive ideas that will come to fruition, that will bear fruit in the distant future, because they can't bear fruit. They'll never bear fruit. They're impracticable, and they're impossible.
So they put it up against some immeasurable yardstick, which is and it's exactly it. And they do it under the guise of, well, we're doing it to protect you. We're doing it to serve you. And and you get into this in your book, Ameritopia, as well, the difference in how conservatives view the Constitution and how these utopian leftists view the Constitution. Whereas, you and I and everyone listening, we see it as this is a protection against bigger government. But that's not how these utopians see it. Go into that a little bit.
The Constitution was written to preserve our society. In other words, the founders loved this society. They fought a revolution for this society to protect it. We have a president who wants to radically transform it, and at least he's honest about that. So the Constitution has as its purpose set up a limited central government with enumerated powers. We all know this, and the authority belongs to the individual and the states, and that's to protect individual sovereignty and to stop what all the great philosophers opposed, a all-powerful centralized despotism. And if you'll notice today, and it actually stretches back at least a century, there is a constant assault on the Constitution, which is an assault on our society and an assault on individual sovereignty, because the only thing that stands between us and tyranny is that Constitution. And so it's not even adhered to in the breach anymore in many respects, whether it's Obama making these unconstitutional appointments or whether it's the court system that follows foreign law or believes in a living and breathing Constitution. Wilson spoke about this even before he became president. He hated the Constitution. He hated the Declaration and all but said it. Same with FDR. So that's why I have a chapter in the book that says it's called Post-Constitutional America. So much of what's being done by our government, so much of what's going on in this country is unconstitutional. There's no basis for it whatsoever. So if we're not strictly a constitutional republic, and we're not anymore, and we're not strictly a representative republic, because so much goes on in our government that has nothing to do with how we vote, then what are we? And that's what I struggled with, and I've concluded we're in Ameritopia. We're kind of on the cusp. We're more and more unmoored from our Constitution and more moving toward this utopian tyranny.
Absolutely. Well, this is a great book. It's I love the way you can't argue with the arguments that you put in it. I have one more question for you before we go to break here. Yeah. You discuss this as well, that there's a certain part of this utopian ideology that is attractive to some people. And I've always, just believed that it's just because, is it just due to ignorance? It's because they don't know any better that they find that, oh, well, this sounds great in theory. Maybe it'll work in practice. It seems it's just based in ignorance, but is there more to it than that?
That is a great question, and that really is the nub of the matter, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And what I say in the book is, what is this force that allures millions of people and then destroys them? And what it is it can be a number of things. It can be administrative coercion from the bureaucracy. It can be entitlements where people are bought off. It can be people wanting power, crony capitalism. But the fact of the matter is there is this effort to destroy the American mindset, the American psychology of the rugged individualists, of the successful, of the productive, of the industrious. You can hear Obama attacking the rich. What he really means is people who are successful, whether they're rich or not. And that has to be their attack. That is most of us, on most of us, because if you're going to destroy society in order to impose something new, then you have to really tear it down. And so the more people who are not successful, the more you can transform the society.
It's a scary, scary truth that we all have to face. Mark Levin, MarkLevinShow.com, the book Ameritopia, The Unmaking of America. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Same here, Dana. God bless.
God bless you. Take care.